Welcome back, guys. I just watched a movie called War for the Planet of the Apes. If you guys are new to my channel, or if you've seen my channel around and you actually like the content that I do, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell so you can be reminded of my future reviews. Now, before I get into the actual plot and the characters and stuff like that, this is going to be filled with spoilers, so you have your warning. But then again, you probably watched this movie already like last week. But guys, I thought this movie was great. It looked beautiful. A lot of the scenes with the apes itself look so real. But this movie takes place right after the Dawn of the Apes, where Koba kind of like turns a lot of the apes against the humans. And obviously after that happened, there were repercussions where in the trailer of the War of the Apes, it made it seem like all humans wanted to kill all the apes because of the virus. But it turns out that it's kind of different, and that's just my own perspective that I got out of the trailer, because in the title it says War for the Planet of the Apes, which kind of makes it seem like, yo, okay, you know, this movie's going to be like filled with a lot of action, and there's going to be a whole lot of like war scenery and stuff. It's more like of a psychological war between Caesar himself battling with the aftermath of what just happened to Caesar Jr. and his wife. And that's all because of Woody Harrelson, the colonel, because he comes down and kills his family. And holy shit, that scene was brutal. So the entire movie to me kind of seemed like a revenge plot from Caesar. You know, he's had it. He did his best to kind of retreat and hide away the apes as much as he could, trying to stay away from humans as much as possible. But the weight of Koba's actions are still haunting him till this time, you know? Now, like I said, this movie is more like a psychological war, but there are two major scenes in this movie where you can say like, oh my God, this is going to be a war movie. And that's literally in the beginning and the end. Now, in the beginning, the movie opens up with a shot of like the humans like super quiet, like trying to sneak into like their secret hideout in the forest, and things just go crazy from because they start shooting a lot of apes, killing them, and then out of nowhere they try to capture as many, but then somebody sends out like a signal of emergency or whatever, like one of the apes, they scream super loud, and everybody comes to the rescue. Now, there were three people that almost could have been killed, but Caesar decides not to and show the colonel that, hey, you know, we're against this war, we don't want to be part of this war, we'll retreat and we'll leave you alone if you leave us alone. So he kind of shows mercy to these three characters, and that's what caused Colonel to go over there and kill some of the other apes, including Caesar Jr. and his wife. Now, something that I didn't expect in this movie was that Caesar is very emotional. And I mean, he is emotional to the max. Like, there's so many scenes where he's like crying or in tears, and it's sad. And it's so sad, guys. Like, I remember, like, I was wondering, I was like, why is he so emotional? And like, I'm like, damn, what the hell? And then I'm like, holy crap, his wife and kid just died, and he just got captured trying to get to the colonel, and he's being treated like a slave and beaten and being starved to death. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, yeah, like, that's crazy. Like, I totally get where he's coming from now. Andy Serkis as Caesar is amazing. Like, just his acting skills are amazing. The stop motion or motion capture of this movie is great. I remember the scene in the beginning where they were quiet and they were going towards Caesar. There was one of the gorillas that just kind of approaches to the side of one of the soldiers, and I was like, holy shit, is that a real monkey? Like, what the hell? It's amazing to see how much technology has developed to the point where you can't really tell whether or not these apes are real apes or not. Woody Harrelson in this movie was great. He had a very like crazy purpose, and it was meaningful when he told the story, because he basically tells the story about his son that, you know, with the virus, they're kind of rolling back to a primitive state where they kind of can't talk and they're like less smart, I guess. And it happened to his son, so he kind of kills him. And Woody Harrelson's representation of this character is just brutal. You can tell that this guy has no mercy on anybody. And now the thing about this movie was that it made it seem like it was all humans versus all apes, but it turns out that Woody Harrelson, the colonel, is actually using all the apes that he has captured to build this wall to keep out all the other humans that have been infected. And of course, he was against the other humans, saying like, hey, you know, we're gonna deal with this with medication instead of war. So there is a good group of humans out there that are willing to like not fight the apes versus the colonel just trying to kill everybody, including humans. And before I get into the things that I didn't like, one character in particular who had me nervous from the trailer was Bad Ape. But it turns out that he was actually pretty great in this movie. He's very innocent, he's very naive, and he's totally against the idea of war. And you know, he's been hiding out in this like mansion or something like that by himself for a very long time, so he's freaked out, and at the same time he's very happy to have met Caesar and like Maurice and them. And it's cute. Like, I felt really bad for him. Like, he's freaking out. He's like a little kid kind of, and he kind of gets involved with Caesar. Obviously, they go towards like where their hideout is, where the wall is, and every time something has to be done that's kind of dangerous, he's like, oh, no. I was like, Bad Ape, no. no. And it's kind of funny. Like, I really enjoy that. And I thought that was going to take away from the intensity of the movie, but it actually doesn't. It actually kind of works. It has a really good balance between its humor and like how intense and dark it can be. Now, as far as the girl that they find, I can't remember her name, but Maurice finds her and he kind of takes care of her. He kind of felt bad because they kind of just killed her dad. And at the same time, she's mute because she was affected by this virus. But I feel like the movie could have done without her, because I feel like they just added her into this movie for some of those dramatic scenes where one of the gorillas dies. But even then, I was like, I feel like the scene would have made more sense if Maurice died, you know? Because he's the one that cared for her so much. But then again, I didn't want Maurice to die, but I still felt like at some points I was just like, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of reason for this girl to be in this movie. Now, another part of the movie, obviously, that I forgot to mention in the beginning was that Caesar Jr. had set out to look for a new location to hide out, and they did, but they decided not to go out that night. Like, they had found like this secluded island where it's very hidden, and they for sure knew that no humans were gonna find them. And that's why he came back and killed a lot of the monkeys and actually captured them. And that's why Caesar wanted to go out there and rescue them. He gets thrown into like monkey jail, I would say, where he's kept like a slave. Like, he's beating him, they're not feeding him, they're making him do like hard labor building this wall. Some of the things in this movie that I would say I didn't like as much was, for example, the little girl. I feel like, you know, I feel we could have done without her and it would have been fine. But, you know, they use her like more like, if I say, sentimental character, where it adds like those scenes where you're like, oh my god, somebody died, and she's there and she's making it more sad. But to me, it didn't really work that much. Another scene was that they really don't explain the whole human versus ape thing, because the whole time it's a war, but in my eyes it was all humans versus all apes. But it turns out there was human against human. They humans want to keep safe ape, and apes don't want to deal with any of this shit, but somehow get caught up in the middle of everything. It was kind of confusing and conflicting. Now, the very ending was so ex machina, I'm not gonna lie, because they do escape. They like dig under these tunnels to like get all the kids out and all the adult apes out. And then when they finally do escape, there is a great scene between Caesar and the colonel, because the colonel was so devoted on getting rid of all humans with that disease and that virus that's been affecting them. And guess what? He gets infected with it at the very end. And I would say that was kind of predictable, I'm not gonna lie, but it was a very intense scene because Caesar was at the verge of killing him, but he retracts his gun and he's like, you know what, I'm not gonna do it. And he lets Woody Harrelson do it himself and commits suicide. Now, there's this other character whose name is Preacher, who Caesar didn't kill in the beginning, kind of to show that he has mercy on humans. And he doesn't add a whole lot of character in this movie besides holding his bow and arrow, because in the opening shot, he just uses his bow and arrow to shoot down an ape to start the attack on the apes. But then throughout the movie, he's kind of just there to the right of the colonel, just looking sad, showing empathy for the apes, and that's really all he does. And in the end of the movie, he's the one that puts those 2 arrows on Caesar's like ribs or whatever that eventually, you know, causes him to die. But then again, even though he caused Caesar's death, I feel like there wasn't so much to this character that I would have wanted. And he even dies in a dramatic way, where one of the gorillas that was on Koba's side ends up blowing him up. But then towards the end, guys, whenever they escape and Caesar almost kills the colonel, but colonel commits suicide, these other humans, I guess, who have been infected or are trying to stop the colonel, come out of nowhere attacking them. And that's crazy. And I didn't understand, like, they just came out of nowhere. I mean, they did mention in the movie itself that they were gonna come, and that's where they were getting the wall ready, but it's like, but it was pretty predictable to me that they were gonna come that night, because, you know, everything leading up to the escape and stuff like that was kind of like a big conflict just waiting to come. And then another thing was that whenever Caesar throws that grenade towards like that big tank of fuel or whatever, everything blows up around that wall. And I was just like, how did that happen? And then there's another thing where the avalanche happens, and I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was intense. But then after the entire aftermath of the movie, I thought about it and I was like, man, that was very convenient. Like, that eliminated both the colonels and all the other soldiers in white that I guess were in favor of the apes, even though they were gonna kill Caesar at that one point. But it eliminated all those humans, and I don't know if that was the rest of the humans of the world or what, but everybody died in that scene except the apes. They managed to somehow climb up to trees and hold on for their dear lives until the avalanche passed. And I'm not saying that I'm not hating on that scene, but I'm just saying, like, it was very cliche to me, but at the same time it was very intense and I enjoyed it for what it was shown. Now, this movie does do justice for Caesar because of all the shit he went through from the first, second, and now the third adaptation of this movie, and I'm very happy with the way that things ended for Caesar. You know, even even though he ends up dying, it's very sad because in a way it kind of sets it up to how the original Apes would start. You know, this is like a prequel to what was supposed to happen in the older movies. The movie itself, guys, is not a slow movie because the intensity does pick up. There are scenes where it's very quiet because they're like exploring through some areas where they could be killed or they have to kill someone. I liked a lot of the characters. I liked the scenery. I liked the direction for this movie. It was great. Like I said, some of the stuff that happened in this movie were kind of predictable, but at the same time, the level of intensity was really high. Some of the stuff that happened towards the end to me were kind of like cliched, and then at the same time, I felt like it took the easy way out. Caesar himself was very emotional in this movie, and I really liked that. I feel like the score to the movie didn't go along with some of those emotional scenes because it had me right there in tears, but it just didn't push me over to where I wanted to cry. I don't know why. But guys, I would really recommend this movie if you're a fan of the Ape movies. I really enjoyed them. I really liked the first one. I liked the second one, and I really enjoyed this one. I'm gonna give War for the Planet of the Apes a 4 out of 5. It's a great way to end Caesar. I'm not gonna lie. I really enjoyed this film. I hope you guys do check it out if you're a fan. And by the way, guys, please comment down below what is your favorite Planet of the Apes movie so far, you know, from this trilogy. Like, for example, mine I think will be the first one, I think, just because of the way things start. Guys, again, if you guys are new to my channel, please subscribe and hit the little bell button so you can be reminded of my next reviews or whenever I post new videos. If you guys like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. But as always, guys, stay tuned.